Welcome to the Marvel Cinematic University podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Canton III, and we are continuing our mini-series, Road to Doomsday, as we are now at part 2, talking about one Spider-Man. Where's he at? What's he doing? What's next? What's going to happen there? But before we get to that and everything else, patreon.com/MCUniversityPod, we can get our bonus content such as we are continuing the John Wick series this month. We got John Wick 3 on deck, the subscriber mailbag, as you're used to every month. And of course, $3 to get into the Discord and our backlog of bonus episodes. And of course, if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, all of those things. If you have any thoughts on what's going on in the MCU as we dive into these subjects and things along those lines, please feel free. And with that being said, let me introduce the super producer, Jake Christie. Jake, how are you?
I'm doing well. Excited to do another one of these. Excited to have this panel. You know, AC, this was a great idea of giving us something to talk about regularly in year 2025. So thank you.
Oh, of course, of course. It's fun to get into the nitty gritty of what's about to happen in the MCU. And with that being said, we do have a wonderful panel, as Jake said. Firstly, we leave the key under the mat for him, and he comes back every single time. Rod, aka the black guy who tips. Rod, how you doing, sir?
Hey man, good night to all y'all. Okay, what's going on over here, man? I'm ready to get into some Peter Parker and what the hell else is going on in this universe right now.
Yes, we will. We definitely will get into that, and also we have a returning member of the OG3, the person that we started this podcast with originally back in 2018. One Jerome Cheng, aka Black Dragon Road. Jerome, how are you? Welcome back.
I'm doing great. 6 years? I guess so.
We're
right?
not. We're about to be. It's about to be 7.
My
it's about to be
goodness.
7 years.
Oh wow, that's amazing.
It's about
No,
to be 7. I had very little gray in my beard when we started.
Right, right. You had very little gray and very few to non-existent children.
Yes.
No damn kids.
No damn kids.
No damn kids with
I
this.
actually do remember, you were just about to have your first.
Yes.
And I want to say that was Infinity War.
No, that was Endgame.
Oh, it was Endgame. It was
Right
Endgame.
around Endgame.
And
yes.
I remember you like prepping, like, guys, I don't know, it's getting really close. I think, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to watch it. And I had like the slightest bit of concern, but in my mind, I was like, AC is gonna find a way.
Mm-hmm.
AC is gonna find a way, and you did. And
out to the
we
boy.
kept it going. It was great, man.
Yes,
Shout out to your boy.
yes. Oh, it's nice to look back at so many fond memories.
That's crazy,
that we
man.
have. Yeah, I know
Yeah.
so much time has passed, but with that being said, yeah, so much time has passed since Spider-Man: No Way Home. December
Oh my God, yeah.
December
2021?
Yeah, December 2021. And I think where I'll start is where we left the character was in such a interesting place. You finish not only the first trilogy, but you also have him left basically alone, where nobody remembers him, and he's kind of in the Peter Parker that we're used to knowing in the comic books. So that aspect is interesting. So Jerome, I'll start with you here.
Mm-hmm.
As somebody who's a big Spider-Man person / No Way Home person, in terms of like going back and rewatching it and looking at some of the things that happened, how do you feel about Peter Parker coming out of that movie? And is there any still like nostalgic feelings you have whenever you go back to that movie?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's like a really weird place to leave that one, because even just like outside of it, we just didn't know if Tom Holland was going to be back. We just didn't know, like, we kind of like were pretty sure it was coming back. So on the one hand, there wasn't a lot of like immediate like looking forward to what's next, and more so just like feeling the conclusion of it, like the finality of it. And so like kind of going back and looking at it and watching it, it is more with nostalgia than it is a lot of like, what are the seeds here that are put ahead? Also because where they leave the character is like, I was trying to figure out like, what are the rules of this Doctor Strange spell? Like, what happened? Spider-Man exists, right?
Right.
Peter Parker doesn't exist.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and definitely obviously like the connection to it. So it just leaves it in a weird place that like, am I correct in that the next time we may see him, or that we're expected to perhaps, is Doomsday? Like in this like Doomsday journey, the next time Peter Parker could show up, or like that happens before whatever the projected Spider-Man 4 is, right?
Right, and that's actually the interesting part of all this is the idea that Spider-Man's next appearance is in Avengers Doomsday, and then the
Right.
movie subsequently follows 3 months later,
Mm-hmm.
with already it being said that the movie takes place after the events of Doomsday.
Right. Yeah. So
So
then to that end, it's just like we're not going to get, at least to my knowledge, or like to my guessing, like it's an Avengers movie. I don't think you're getting like a deep Spider-Man story. I think
Mm-hmm.
the best you're getting in terms of an intro back is something akin to Civil War introduction Peter Parker.
yeah, to a
Maybe.
degree, but he's a big part of the movie. And
Sure.
with that being said, Rod, I wanted to ask you, like, obviously, I'm sure you enjoyed No Way Home a lot. How did you feel about the character? Friend of the show, Howard Bryant. I remember when we did the pod with him all those years ago, and he goes, now that Spider-Man could go back to the street. He could be the street level hero in this instance. What are you looking at when you think about the character? Does it matter to you something like that, or are you just cool with wherever they decide to take it, as far as him being a part of bigger stories and things like that?
Oh yeah, I'm always open minded to whatever they do. I just want it to be well done. So if they decide to do some street level stuff, if it's done well, then that's cool. I think with Daredevil and all that stuff coming into the fold, which is something that I think we didn't have during No Way Home, we didn't know that was going to happen. Um, they may take care of that feeling of we need some street level stuff before we get to this next movie where we're like, no, Spider-Man can go ahead and start punching cosmic beings again. Um, the biggest thing for me for No Way Home was more about I felt like this was the movie that finally made him like Peter Parker. Peter doesn't feel right unless his life is struggle, So now he's in like a one bedroom apartment. He's lost Mary Jane and he's his best friend. He's down bad. And that ending made me feel like Tom Holland could continue to do this role. Like I feel like also we finally got like a bit of a conclusion to the like Tony Stark as Uncle Ben storyline that they had done, where you
Yeah.
kind of replace Uncle Ben with Stark, and then we see him lose him instead of losing Uncle Ben. So you got that. They also, people I think forget, man, like they kind of needed a hit because people were starting to get down on the universe and all MCU, and why didn't they just end it after Avengers Endgame? Like, who wants all this other stuff?
This was
Can these
right after
movies
Eternals, by the way.
exactly, can these
Yeah.
movies even make $1 billion
Yeah.
anymore? And then it was like, no, apparently we do love this stuff and we do want to see it. So that was a big thing. That it was a multiverse movie was a big thing. It redeemed Sony in so many ways because it made movies that where people could feel like they were laughing stock movies, like Jamie Foxx's Electro.
Mm-hmm.
They get a chance to redo it, and like
Yeah.
the nostalgia of it wasn't the only redeeming point. Like it was, no, this is better done. Like
Right.
you should have done this. Is how
Mhm.
like like
You're right.
like when you saw people show up, you're like when Andrew Garfield made me cry. I
Yep.
went, that's what
Yeah.
I wanted from those Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies. So I think the last point I'll make too is that this movie to me put the Spider-Man franchise right behind Captain America as far as like
Mm.
like this trilogy of movies to me were all extremely good. And I think maybe only Captain America so far has landed the plane of like,
Mhm.
yeah, all their separate movies from the Avengers is also good. And then of course Black Panther hasn't made it to movie 3 yet, so we'll see.
Mhm.
Yes, and Jake, like in terms of
Yeah.
the character itself and kind of where you see it, from your perspective, if you have had a chance
Ye-
to go back or think
It's.
about
I
it.
mean, I've revisited a couple times, but I think that I like a sentiment I've seen. And I think this just is a thing of time. Where I think that as time has gone on, people have been more critical of them changing so many things about the way that this Spider-Man's portrayed, or like cutting stuff out, like putting him as you said, Rob, basically making Uncle Ben Tony Stark, and then also killing Aunt May and things like that. And I think that people forget just how much of a laughingstock it was, the idea that they were going to do another Spider-Man like a year after. Like, they announced that Spider-Man was coming to the MCU with a new actor like a year after he made Spider-Man 2. Like, people really forget how little appetite there was. If Spider-Man Homecoming started off with Uncle Ben dying, that would have been truly, like, people would have walked out. Like, I think people really don't. So yeah, in hindsight, you wish that those other franchises, like, there was more space and so we could get a full story or whatever. So I think that, like, I understand every decision that they made in regards to this Spider-Man as the time they made it. If I was designing a perfect Spider-Man trilogy, like, be as true to the character as possible, and just I would not have intertwined him so much with Stark. The thing I definitely would have done, I would not have given him so much nanotechnology, but that's another thing. But I think that where they leave him is really good because they don't like. I think the thing that's valuable about it is that they don't undo his experiences. It's not like he gets his memory wiped. It's not like he thinks he's just, a random kid in Queens. But he is able to not be defined by his experiences because no one else knows that. And I think they have a lot of opportunity to do things with that. Now, I don't expect them to do like a fully street level movie just because, like, I know what's on the can. Like, I'm buying an MCU movie. Like, I'm not naive. I think a lot of people like trick themselves to be like, why can't there just be a movie where just like fighting, like Wilson Fisk or whatever? And it's like, these movies because they want to make $1 billion. Like, I there are other things I could watch if I was that worried about that. But I think that there is an opportunity having him in Doomsday to get a lot of the energy out of like the big superhero stuff. And I think that you can, even if like the threat might be bigger than street level, I think that emotionally they can do a more grounded thing. They can have a more grounded storyline if they get if they let him do the punching and the kicking on Doctor Doom. Then they can be like, okay, let's tell a grounded story.
Yeah, no, I think like hearing from both of you guys, like, and running through the Tom Holland era of Spider-Man, like, yeah, where we ended up in, like, what a lot of the gripes were when it came to like wanting a street level grounded Spider-Man, I think a lot of it is really just like removing Tony Stark and the technology. Like, and also he comes into the MCU in Civil War very grounded, and I would argue Homecoming is pretty grounded. So it's not like we're going back to something we haven't seen at all yet.
Yeah.
I think it's just that, like, compounding it, and like, AC, I'll kind of throw it to you at this point. It's just you want grounded street level stories with Spider-Man, but Spider-Man's also like top 3, top 5 Marvel characters.
Yeah.
Like, you're not keeping the guy in the G League.
Right. He's clearly going to be a main character in this movie, and more so the connection to Stark. When we get the screen time of Peter Parker seeing Doctor Doom looking like Iron Man, is gonna be kind of like a what?
Yeah.
Did you see the meme where it's like where Daredevil's there and it's like, wait, what's going on?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I think when Jake was talking about the emotional aspect and creating that on its own is a story. You can still carry what he's dealing with from the events of No Way Home into that, because he's probably going to run into people that he knows but that don't know him. So
I'd also say that one, they had this Spider-Man cartoon coming that clearly seems to have a very like street level vibe to it, like it, because it's easier to do this stuff in serialized TV shows than it is to do in movies.
Yes, totally.
And then the second thing, and then the second thing is that for the MCU, Vulture and Mysterio, that is street level. It's like for the MCU, once you're fighting like concepts in the cosmos, then fighting a guy who has drones is actually the guy that's still a problem for the street level.
Vulture
Yes.
was just running guns. Like, I
Right.
mean, like they were like really cool guns, but he was
Right.
just a gun dealer.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, Michael Keaton's portrayal is essentially like a union boss sounding like, he's like a guy, he's like a foreman,
Totally.
So I think,
Yeah.
but I also think, we've, this is the issue when you make something as successful in the long run as the MCU. There's always going to be an issue of different way you could have done things. And because we've seen so many ways and portrayals of characters and stories at this point, part of the nerdery of the like people who watch this stuff is talking about what it wasn't, like part
Right.
of what makes
Totally.
us want to have conversations is be like, but it could have been this. And what's so funny about No Way Home in particular is that they MCU'd Sony. I can't
Yeah.
even imagine them being able to do that. But like they showed us. It's so funny that like in hindsight, some of
Yeah.
you are like, but they don't always seem to have a plan and they make things up on the fly. I'm like, nothing should have told us more that like, yo, sometimes they be cooking when they do that than No Way Home, because it's like, I know these ideas for MCU is like, yo, these are like, why did you do this to our Spider-Man character? Just give them back. And yet in No Way Home, they're like, so the webs come out of your body, and I'm
Right.
like, oh,
Yeah.
this is now a fun thing that I remember nerds being outraged about. And so all that to say, like, I don't think we're gonna get the grounded Spider-Man necessarily, at least not for a whole movie, but it'll be fine. It'll be their version of grounded.
Yeah, and also like even though we don't remember who Peter Parker is, like in terms of like the characters don't, like No Way Home establishes a full Spider-Man universe. Like
Yes.
a full gallery of rogues, like all these things. Like I understand that they all exist in other multiverses, but they essentially now have become part, like, because they're all canon now too, right?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
we've agreed upon that. And I obviously like all the stuff around the multiverse, and I don't know where it goes, and I don't know how Doomsday addresses it or kind of goes in its own path. But yeah, like all of it to say, like, I don't know, they're in a good spot. They just have a clean slate. That's like the interesting part, differently from like a lot of the other
Yep.
characters, is they have a clean slate and they can go in any direction they want to go.
I think the fun thing, and it's fun for me to look at it this way, is the stuff with Sony. Because a few months ago, Tom Holland was talking about the creative and everything that goes along with that, and how he had to step in and be like, "Hey guys," in terms of writing this movie, "Hey guys, hey, maybe y'all doing a little too much. There's a little too much going on." So I found it interesting how vociferous he was in terms of like his dedication to the character and making sure that the character has a proper portrayal and a good story at the same time.
I know Andrew Garfield is clenching his fist because he tried to do that with his too. Yeah.
But obviously Tom got a different level. He was like, I got a little bit of a different level of power now in
Right.
terms of how this is supposed to go for me. Because if I'm going to do these movies, they have to be a good story. And this is where the push and pull when it comes to Sony and Marvel itself, that's where it gets fascinating. Because initially with the Venom the Last Dance thing, they had Null, the king of the symbiotes, in it, and this overlapping storyline with what was going on with Venom. And at least initially, Sony reportedly, allegedly, was trying to get that storyline and push that in to this next Spider-Man movie. And
Excellent.
it seems like if you put two and two together, Tom was like, I don't know about this, because they wanted to do the Spider-Man Venom thing.
They wanted to keep Spider-Man over with the Shanghai Sharks over overseas.
It's they clearly are trying to use Spider-Man to like get the stink off their other stuff,
Right.
and like
Yeah.
it's why the deal is. Like, I think I've always enjoyed telling people who are interested about like some of the machinations in Hollywood, even though I don't know all of it, because so many people are like, why did they do this? Because this would be an obviously better creative decision. I'm like, the amount of bullshit that decides what these movie studios do. They're like, you would be confused if you didn't know anything about the corporate stuff. You'd be really confused as to why the Sony movies suck so much and the Spider-Man movies are good, yada yada, and why there's like why Eddie Brock appears in Spider-Man's universe and then doesn't interact with anyone. Like, I know it's because Sony is trying really hard to get Eddie Brock to interact with Tom Holland, and Kevin Feige is like, absolutely not. Like, I know that that's what's happening, and so it just makes a really misshapen thing going on. And I think the thing I worry about with Spider-Man 4 is that it's really gotten to a place where, for the first three, especially the first two, Marvel and Sony's incentives were pretty aligned. And now they're really not. Like, they're obviously, they want to make a good movie, but plot-wise, what Sony wants to, because now that they've basically given up on this universe, they're not done trying to make movies out of the stuff they own, because they own it. They're going to try to make movies out of it. And so they have a lot of incentive to try to use Tom Holland's Spider-Man movies to make them more money in other movies in the future. And obviously the MCU wants them to do none of that. But they have a veto power over everything because they own the character. And so, like, the thing I would worry about is, like, Sony is up at the plate trying to swing for a home run on every single pitch. And it's like, you can't do that. Like, we're trying to win the game, you know?
Right.
And so that's where, like, you can just imagine them coming in a boardroom being like, okay, so we're bringing back Tobey and Andrew, and we're going to have Venom come in. We're also going to bring back Topher Grace's Venom, and we're going to bring and it's like, you can just imagine them being like, yeah, we're going to do the exact same again. And I really hope that they get shot down as much as possible. Now, I think
they will, because I don't know if y'all remember, but before No Way Home, there was that big fallout between Sony and,
of course,
where they basically tried to hold Spider-Man hostage and then tried to do like a standoff of like, well, we'll fuck up our own Spider-Man franchise if you guys won't let us fuck up the MCU. And Feige, to his credit, stood firm and was like, I'm calling your bluff. I don't think you want that. And the way the deal is done, it only because those Sinister Six movies are so bad is the only reason that there's any level of trepidation, because honestly, it would be so stupid to mess this deal up for Sony at this point. You don't have to do anything. You're just gonna get $1 billion movie,
get free money
every 4 to 5 years for doing nothing, and get a lot of the credit for it. So yeah, you're absolutely right that they will always want to fuck it up. But I when you said their values were kind of aligned, I'm like, I don't feel like they ever really were aligned. I think Sony always was angling for what they're trying to do now, and what they like.
Fair.
This will always be an issue for Sony to be like, but what if we get Stiltman in it? It's just gonna be like, no, just shut the fuck up and let us do.
I'll be honest with you. I think that I wouldn't mind if Stiltman is in like a cold open fight. Like, I think that would be fun.
Of course, but I feel like they'd be like, we want the Stiltman trilogy, and also, can we put Stiltman in your Spider-Man movie? It's
the reason why I say that the interests have changed, I would say, is that I think the success of Venom 1 changed Sony's calculus a lot. I think that they're like, oh my god, we don't need Marvel at all. I think that is like kind of.
But you don't think the unsuccess of the Here to After movies kind of put them back into the
I think you guys also
we're kind of still in the same place we started.
Right.
I mean,
you guys also have to
and no.
acknowledge like the Into and Across the Spider-Verse.
Of course.
That I think is actually the part that like they kind of, even though obviously it's not live action, like those are legitimately on par, if not some of the best Spider-Man films we've seen to date. And those are strictly Sony properties. So like they definitely have at least some say in the matter. And then I guess to your point too, Jake, like Venom doing so well was insane, but also like just a huge misread. And then I mean also Jake, you were talking about it before, but not to like take away the magic of creativity and storytelling when it comes to these things, like all it really comes down to is like how a company sees itself making money and how it retains rights. And I don't think a coherent story that like meshes well with the MCU like is actually doing it. Like I think, you know, with the Sinister Six and like everything they're doing, like finally like start pushing to the level, like we're talking like DC EU levels bad that they actually needed to maybe like restart it. But I think they were running on like, we own this and we can do whatever we want, and it is still making enough money that we don't need to actually like do it well.
That's the thing. I want to make it clear, because the Venom movies made a lot of money, I think that Sony probably made a profit off of their villain movies.
Exactly.
They probably
Exactly.
did. So like I think like that's the thing about Hollywood is it's like it's actually really hard to lose money after all is said and done.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
But I
The
guess
reason they're
what I-
crazy is because
what
they
I'm-
want to keep making more money than last year, not make a profit.
Right, right.
I guess what I'm saying is like, yes, those movies made money, right? But that's like looking at that's like looking at an NFL team and being like, Patrick Mahomes is good, Travis Kelce is good, and then you start going down the roster and you're like, this guy sucks. This
Oh,
guy
for
sucks.
sure.
So like
Sure,
the
yeah,
order
yeah.
No, no,
of
no.
the order of
I
the
don't think
failure
that
to
the-
me, like the order of the failures, and then them getting worse and worse, like as it went on.
Yeah,
Puts them in a weakened position, is what I'm saying. Like,
I agree.
If
I
they
think they
could,
will lose too.
the strongest position they had was after Venom 2. And if
Yeah.
Kevin Feige sat across the table from them and was like, fuck you, then I don't think 2025 or 2026 they go,
I agree.
we're in a stronger
agree.
position than we were then. It's like, no, we broke you before.
Yeah.
And all you're gonna do is fuck up your Spider-Man bag. So have at it.
Yeah,
Didn't you
wait it
see?
out.
Didn't you see Craven?
Yeah.
Did anyone? Okay, so we have half the people here on
Uh-huh.
this panel that have
Uh-huh.
actually seen Craven.
Uh huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to hear my thoughts, my extended thoughts, I did a
Yeah.
Patreon pod where I just spoke extemporaneously for about a half hour about it.
I think that
The
is
closing-
unethical
the
to put more
closing
Craven
joke.
content behind a paywall. No one should
I
be
will
paying
ju-
for Craven content.
I will just say this. The way that Jake closes that singular
it's
pod
one of
that
my
he
better
does
jokes
about
they ever
Craven,
made.
All right.
incredible joke. Incredible.
But no, the thing about Craven is I think Craven is like I think it really exemplifies a lot of the entire issue with the whole universe is that like they have to invent a reason for Craven being that is not Spider-Man,
Right.
and it's
Right.
it's not that's paper thin, and so it doesn't work. Like the movie,
Yeah.
the problems of the movie begin and end with the fact that there's no reason for him to exist outside of Spider-Man's universe.
Yep.
Right. Okay. Okay. So
I
you're
mean,
saying
Madam-
they struggled
but
to
also,
groom
like-
an Aaron Taylor Johnson project?
Yeah.
That was the joke.
Yeah, that's the joke.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, the joke I made, if I could
Jake.
spoil it, was he has a
Carl
crazy hair
Anthony
and
Towns,
beard.
salute to you.
A crazy hair and beard, which is odd because in real life, Aaron Taylor Johnson was groomed. Pot over.
Boom, boom, boom.
That's great.
There you go.
Hashtag brand synergy. Jerome is like he never
Exactly.
left.
So no one needs to pay for it because no one
Nope.
should ever pay for Craven.
Well, no, the point of the pod was
Yeah.
it's a thing I did after Morbius, where it's like
Totally.
you don't want to see this. I will answer all of your like who's good in the movie, who's bad in the movie,
Right.
what accent is so and so doing, like
Yeah.
No, not to take away from the function of like having a podcast and having fun with you guys talking about things. I think when it comes to the level of a Sinister Six Sony villain
Mhm.
franchise,
Mhm.
you may not need a podcast. I think a simple like Google Doc that answers the question that is like free for people to
Yeah.
access
fair.
might be more than enough information at that
Yeah.
point.
Well, I
You know, that's-
personally,
I appreciate
I'm
that.
on your side,
Yeah, yeah.
Jake, on this one. I feel like as the only two who saw it here, when you go through what we went through,
Mhm.
you need to pay me to talk about this. Like that's
Yeah.
something-
Yeah,
I've
no,
done
I'll
the
give you
labor
that.
that
That's
no one
totally
else
fair.
wants to do, and
Uh,
I saw it so you don't have to. So yeah, give me a couple of dollars to it's going to my therapy.
guess what? $3 a month. That's cheaper than $3 a month is cheaper than a movie ticket. Now I
Yeah.
have Regal Unlimited, so that's not true, but still.
Right, a few coins of Quicksilver for you.
Well, it's cheaper for
exactly.
them. It's cheaper for the people that
Oh
are
right,
gonna
yeah,
go
yeah.
see this.
But no, but to go back to the conversation, I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that I have confidence that they'll win, especially because Tom Holland is out there vocally like
Right.
making his case.
Yeah.
I think that really helps because like so much of the Spider-Man saga rests on Tom Holland as a celebrity, as a popular figure, and I think that like him not being enthused with it.
Congratulations to Tom Holland, by the
Yeah,
way.
congratulations, salute
Yeah.
to you. But I think that if he's not pleased with it, like he's a big enough star where like he can cause problems, and I don't think they want. I don't think
the
they
very
wanna-
fact that he came back says that we're
Yeah.
on track.
Yeah, I think that he. If I don't think that they're dumb enough to go to war with both Kevin Feige and Tom Holland,
Well-
and so I don't think they will.
Also,
That
you
was
know,
just
now
it.
that you got me thinking about it, it's also probably not gonna work out for them if they're the ones picking up the phone telling these older stars of the other movies to come back. Like
Mm.
Yeah,
so much of what Sony has done has just been on goals for themselves because when you're beefing with like the star of your Madam Web movie, that ain't got shit to do with Kevin Feige, the MCU, or Tom
What are
Holland.
you, Ellen?
Yeah, right. Like you guys are like,
Zelensky's all.
y'all fucked that up for yourselves, and it's become a laughing stock and an albatross around these people's careers in a way that I think the only way you're redeeming this is with that Marvel Kevin Feige seal of approval. When that fucking caller ID comes up on that phone, that's when people are like, well shit, let me see what this is about. But if that shit just is like Sony, it's like, no, stop calling me. I want to pretend this never happened.
I think the biggest thing in a lot of instances, and you guys were talking about corporate and things along those lines. What's big in superhero movies, honestly, sometimes is toys. Toys really kind of sell the thing. So, if I would guess, so at Sony's behest, it's like, all right, we're gonna put the little symbiote left behind at the end of No Way Home. Let's put Spider-Man in the black suit. That way, you can get him on the road to the whole Venom thing. And I think, obviously, in my opinion, the MCU should do their own version of that in conjunction with with the
I mean, you have
that they
Secret Wars like far down the line, and that's where the symbiote like really comes into play, right?
Right.
Yeah.
That's absolutely perfect. Like he should probably. I mean, I would say that he should probably either come into contact with it either then or during his own movie or something like that, because that makes sense in itself.
And at the end of the Last Dance, it feels like Tom Hardy is done. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
Like it doesn't feel like, and then he'll come back for
even
the
though
next.
He tried to say he wasn't.
Yeah.
Really? Yeah.
All the interviews that he did during the promotion of the movie were like, oh well, I mean, I'm done with Venom, the franchise, but I may have some. He basically was like, I may have some other stuff I'm doing.
Well, I mean, respectfully, who says no to a check?
Yeah,
like
right.
It's a Venom check.
Definitely not Tom Hardy if he's done 3 Venom movies. But the thing for me is like he saw that script for that third one. He signed up for it. He know what he was doing.
He co-wrote the script for the third one.
There you go. So he know what he was doing. He was like, it don't matter, Like, was he writing it or was he just like, signing off on
the thing about the Venom character is,
I didn't know it was a heist movie.
Knowing actors, it makes so much sense that he would like to do it because there's nothing an actor does more than a crazy acting exercise, and playing Venom is an acting exercise. Being like, man, you can't do this anymore, and then knowing you're talking to yourself, like that is like theater workshop bullshit.
Even Willem Dafoe only did Green Goblin twice.
Right, and like as far as audiences are concerned, those that had the misfortune of seeing Venom 3. Which many people did not. So I don't even think if you're the MCU, I don't even think you're necessarily considering like, oh, it's gonna break Venom canon, right? So like I think it left the MCU in a place where, as AC was saying, you could bring in your own Venom. You don't you're not beholden to anything they did over there.
With multiverse, everything is possible. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like with the multiverse, you're allowed to bring back versions. You're allowed to create new versions. Like it's kind of the gift and the curse of it. It's
It's a good. I think there is a like anything else. If there's a good mix in there, if you can weave your way through a lot of the stuff that's been going on, like Jerome, for example, in our part 1 of this, we talked about how the multiverse saga itself is very fraught with the changes that they've had to make. The transition from Cheng to Doom, and there's not really any ramp up / build up.
Also, Loki either closed or opened or retconned the multiverse or timelines.
Right. So that's another thing in itself that remains to be seen. So that's where I find Spider-Man being such a huge character.
Right.
But as Tom Holland says, like it's a huge character, but it's a part of the machine.
So, of course.
So when it's a part of the machine, how do you fit these things? And this is the complication that, like, first of all, currently Avengers Doomsday, the big thing about the movie now is that It films in March, and
Oh, already? Okay.
Wow.
yeah, it's filming in March, and they have a story. They're trying to write the script, and studio is like, "Hey, by March we gonna need this." So
Mm,
Oh my
this
gosh.
is this is now we're getting into the stuff that we talked about last episode,
right.
where you have all of these moving parts around, and then you're asking all of these other characters, the newer ones besides Spider-Man, who haven't been built up,
Okay,
and
yeah.
then put them into the mix here,
Yeah.
where you're asking the fan base, and we're talking more so not us diehards, but kind of like the casuals who you're going to sell the movie to, characters that we've only seen like once.
Well, you know what? Like, I kind of lean a little more casual at this point because I don't immediately consume everything and I don't
Right.
necessarily connect all the stuff. But my experience of watching what I've watched in MCU and you talking about all these parts that will fit, like, it feels more disjointed than it did when you looked at an Avengers or an
Yeah.
Infinity War.
Right.
Like, even though you have created a large universe,
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know that this universe has a consistent logic, a consistent science to it. I don't know if like the timelines even make sense anymore. I just know that like you need to have some sort of like Easter egg or an MC University podcast or somewhere to actually like line up how it works. And even when you do, you're doing your best version of putting it together.
Right.
Like the only way we find out how this connects is actually watching the next movie and how they decide to connect. So while
Yeah.
yes, I agree. There are so many moving parts that are happening here. I also don't think it's that much of a juggle because they've
Mm-hmm.
left themselves with such a wide open logic that they can choose whatever way they want to
Yeah.
go through.
Yeah,
I think
I think that
also
yeah.
you hit the nail on the head there when you said casual. Like we're super nerdy into this shit,
Mhm.
but the vast majority of people that are going to see these movies are casual. They've missed some things, they've skipped some things, and they're not necessarily asking the like most particular like
Yeah, that's
what is
true.
the story breaking moment in this, me and AC, cried tears of rage when we saw the secret invasion joint, and it's like, wait a minute.
Oh right, I forgot that happened.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we're like,
Yeah.
Jeez.
what are you trying to say right here with
Yeah.
Rhodey? Right? But
Yeah.
I know that if I bring that up at a party, I'm the weirdo. Right?
Yeah.
Like
Right. Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
vast majority of people are like, who gives a fuck? But I didn't watch that shit and I don't care. So I think while
And
they
also
do
it's inconsequential. The way that ends is like you could have not watched the whole thing and
yeah,
still hop in with not needing to
absolutely.
know that
Agree.
context like
I
you
mean,
would
they
before.
treated it like they knew it was bad. But the point being though is that there's a bunch of stuff at this point that when you're this deep invested and this far in,
Yeah.
there's not a solution. Like you're
Yeah.
not
No.
going to fix 12 different directors' versions of what the fuck ever you just been doing and be like, guys, no. This happened March 6, 1997, and that's very important to the story. Like there's this hardcore nerd like me that cares, and then it's just everyone else is like, I want to see fucking people fight and shit blow up.
Yeah,
And
pretty much.
I'm not memorizing the new Marvel timeline every 5 years that you put out to put it all in right order. Like,
Sure.
who gives a fuck? And their biggest thing the biggest hurdle they're gonna have is just making this shit good. That's it. If you make it good,
Yeah.
we'll make it make sense on the back end. We'll be like, oh no, I cried when
Right.
this moment happened. Aunt May dies. I don't really need a date and time,
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like when it comes to at least these tentpole movies, it
Sure.
feels
Yeah.
like, especially Avengers wise, and obviously No Way Home to a lesser extent, feels like its own event movie.
Yeah.
They've delivered. So we could have, or I can have in my perspective on it as being like, I don't know how this is gonna go, but
Mhm.
Yeah.
they do have a track record. Now, granted, I think the things that we've chronicled over the last couple of years has kind of changed the viewpoint and perspective on that, because agendas of the studio have changed. The era of streaming has altered the entire product more so than anything else, which has kind of led to where we are now, where we're wondering, where it seems like, okay, they're trying to get themselves back to the movies and make the movies good and make them make sense and be a little bit more organized. The problem is also you just made this huge change to a big storyline that wasn't exactly landing with your audience.
Also, I don't think that I don't think that matters though. I don't think audiences care about what the Kang switch out. I don't think.
No,
that,
I don't think so.
No, no, no,
yeah.
no.
Oh, sorry. Go.
What I'm saying is like I know they don't care about the switch out. I'm saying the multiverse saga itself was not landing with people generally.
Yeah.
No,
So
no.
that's what I'm saying more so than that.
I wonder. The thing for me is though, like, I wonder if that's the kind of thing that you just subtly just stop doing as much of, and just people will let it go because they kind of don't want to keep keeping up with the multiverse anyway. So like, I wonder if it's like a solution that's actually very simple, which is we don't need to give them a complex answer to why we stop. We just need to stop, and then you guys will be like, "Hey, you know what? Good enough." Like that, like whatever wraps up Doomsday or wraps up I forget the one after Doomsday. Like whatever wraps it up. If they're just like, and we're done with the multiverse shit, I think people for the most part will be like, "Oh, good," because it was a headache to me.
I think that's I think that's actually the directive. They're trying to end this. They're putting like basically everything that they're doing big after this. It's like, all right, we're not worrying about this. Let's make these particular movies good and close this out and end it.
So the part about the good movie and the good MCU product.
What's up?
I'm very curious about that because the moves, at least like watching the news, like makes it feel like they're just trying to course correct to a time where it worked. And course correct in a way that it's like Robert Downey Jr. is back. Spider-Man's back in the mix.
Yeah.
We're hoping people like pick up on Fantastic Four. Like they are simplifying, but I think like there's nothing yet. And like you said, like everything we've been talking about in terms of like how much they've had to change the story and change what's happened before to get there, like those are up in the air and we don't know if that's going to work. Like we don't have a tight way toward there that I feel like the studio move has been actually just like, we need to bring people in with familiar faces. Like the playoffs aren't as interesting without LeBron James in it. And that's what they want to do. Like parody is not working is like what we're, I think, discovering with this MCU.
I mean,
now.
Marvel Studios has a little bit of a, they're not the Phoenix Suns.
Sure.
But there's a little bit of a vibe there, like a little desperation. We making moves because we need to get this right now.
Yeah.
We don't know if it's gonna work, but let's try and bring some of these old stalwarts in. And then obviously with Phoenix, they in a situation.
It's not even stalwarts as much as just like casuals. Like casuals know Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man, and they'll see him like in a trailer for that, and you're like, oh, it's interesting, he's back. I don't care like how he's back.
I think that it's a couple things going on, and I'll bring it back to Spider-Man because I know we can. The problem is we can just do the same general. Well,
I do have a question about the Spider-Man part after you, Jake.
But I think this is something that's happening honestly. I think in like a lot of walks of life, entertainment. I see it all the time with basketball, and I think I saw it a lot. We saw it a lot with politics the last couple of months of people who are really into something, searching for an explanation as to why people who are not that engaged in it feel a certain way, and it's a fool's errand because like I always talk about it all the time with like the last person I want to hear talk about NBA ratings is someone who watches an NBA game every night because they have no fucking clue why people aren't watching basketball anymore. Like. Sure. And in the same way, like the last person I want to hear, like whenever people ask me, like, what about Marvel fatigue or whatever, I am the person you don't want to talk to. I'm going to see all the movies. I can't tell you what because I don't. And so I think as much as people have derided the move to bring back Robert Downey Jr. and, you know, to focus on stuff that's like more common and comfortable, it's like Deadpool and Wolverine made $1 billion and they brought back Hugh Jackman. It's like, unfortunately, like, I think that there's a way to fix the things and like to make successful movies without doing that. But like, I think a lot of people, I saw too many people want to pretend as though their preferences are like the thing that's going to be most popular. And I think that's a naive thing to do.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think a lot of people don't want this to happen. And I think that that's very fair. I think that this is probably creatively not the best idea in the world, but I'm not arrogant enough to think that it's not a smart like marketing thing. And I think
No,
with
yeah.
Spider-Man, the thing that's lucky about Spider-Man is that he's still alive. It's not like they're bringing back a character from the dead. They're not doing any weird chicanery. He's just, they have him there. Tom Holland is still very young in terms of a movie star. He's only getting more popular as a person. And so, I think that focusing on Spider-Man is really smart for them because they get to have their cake and eat it too, where they can have a very familiar face because both Tom Holland and the character
Also, Spider-Man,
Spider-Man,
the character, is
Yeah,
one of the
exactly,
most recognizable characters. Yeah.
Right.
but also they don't need to do any nonsense that's going to get them criticized or look desperate. If they put Spider-Man in front and center, they don't look desperate. That just looks smart. And so I think that if I were them, that would be my number one priority, even more so than bringing back old
1,000%.
characters.
I would just throw in
have
there. It's not even just the marketing, right? This is a smart move because everyone involved has made them a hit before. Putting the dream team back together is shit. We're lucky we can even fucking look in the bag. This was not our first choice. And I love your NBA analogy, Jake, because this feels like when you talk to NBA fans, and there's always this idea of you know what the problem is? The stars are getting old, and the league isn't doing enough for the younger stars. And I'm I don't know how to tell you this, but the kind of people that make the ratings boom are the kind of people you can't tell Anthony Davis is good. They need to see him and feel something different when they see him. No one, I played basketball with Steph Curry. Nobody fucking saw what Steph Curry was going to be until he was Steph Curry and on the Warriors. And you were like, well, apparently he's fucking different. They don't have
his win shares for 48 is
exactly the stats don't matter. The amount of threes don't matter. It's just, you see certain things and you're they got it different. I think what happened was partially due to the pandemic. You hit a vacuum of stars. You know what I mean? It's just we're not manufacturing movie stars at the moment. No one's going to movies necessarily. And so guys, they did, I think, do a admirable job of trying to make other people be stars. I think they diversified. They started putting, Florence Pugh is a star to me. The way they committed to Anthony Mackie is some George Lucas making Red Tails level shit, where you're just y'all some real ones for trying. Thank you. Y'all some real ones for committing to this brother, as opposed to I'm sure there were many meetings where there were even black people in the room that were y'all don't need to do this. Y'all don't,
Kevin Feige.
Y'all don't need to prove anything to us.
It's like when Mark Cuban refused to trade Roddy Boubois. It's no, I'm not getting rid of this guy.
Yeah, it's just y'all. I know you're a good person, Kevin. You don't gotta throw your whole franchise away.
Mixed with Frank Ntilikina.
I really can't.
Exactly.
For those who don't know, I can't emphasize enough how good the Red Tails joke is.
The first time George Lucas saw Neo do a screen test, he's just we got to stick all the way through it. I'm not gonna blink. That you're a real one for that. And Shang-Chi was actually a good movie. I enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, it was a solid movie.
It's just very hard to make people in America, especially, but people across the world. Say I'm going to treat this person as a star because the movie studio has decided that they're a star.
You need to be more than one character to be a star is the problem.
Sure.
That is, because the death of the movie star is largely because of these big franchises. Because Tom Holland, if Tom Holland wasn't dating Zendaya, I don't think you could call him a movie star. He's a movie star because people care about him out of this. And I think I make fun of him about it all the time. But I mean it. I'm mostly disappointed in Simu Liu's career outside of Shang-Chi. Yes, he's in Barbie, but that's not the most popular role or whatever. And I think that the reason he's not a movie star is not because of anything Marvel did. It's because he hasn't grabbed it.
Yeah.
Or
I think it's actually because he's tried too hard to grab it.
Yes, correct. Yeah, he's a tryhard. Or if I'm Kevin Feige, obviously there's a lot of circumstances going on, but it's I'm telling Aman Vellani book 3 different projects. Because I think it actually really hurts Marvel if all of their new generation of stars are people who are just known for being in Marvel movies. I think that's actually bad for their pedigree. It helped that early on. They had obviously Chris Hemsworth, but he immediately did Rush. He immediately did all these different movies. And other than that, it was people who had been on our screens before, and so you trusted them. And so I think that actors and their characters are inextricably intertwined, especially when they're these movies this big. And so if the audience has no relationship to Simu Liu,
Right.
They saw Shang-Chi 4.5 years ago. They're
Right.
not going to have that much of a relationship to the character. And so
Agreed.
I think that's the thing, once again, that they're really lucky with Tom Holland, that Tom Holland happens to be dating Zendaya, happens to be, going on talk shows to promote his NA beer, happens to be, doing the Chris Nolan movie. Like, that is a huge boon for them. And so, like, that gives me more confidence too that these movies can be good, because, like, he is at his most powerful he's ever been.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah. I'm gonna ask this question just to kind of steer it back in.
Yes, please.
Because we've been talking about like where Spider-Man goes, but it's in reference to the next Spider-Man movie. He may or may not show up in this like Doomsday movie, and I don't know where that fits. So I'm curious, how do you bring someone back that might need a little bit of like footing or regrounding that you're not going to get because you don't have the movie in between?
I think, to me, where this answer lies is the events of Fantastic Four.
Okay.
Because
he can exist there.
Right, so we're introducing Doctor Doom in that movie.
Yeah.
So they're making Doctor Doom a multiversal villain for Doomsday and Secret Wars. Then I guess the easiest assumption that I can make is, all right, we're gonna have all these characters hero side.
Sure.
So we're gonna have to have a bunch of characters villain side too. So if Doctor Doom is like, all right, I control the multiverse, I could use Chris Evans and make him Evil Cap or something like that.
Okay.
If the rumors of ScarJo coming back, you could do evil version of that. Like, there's a lot of ways that you could go, and then have one of these multiversal villains just show up in New York City, and Spider-Man's like, wait a minute, what's happening here? I got to fight this person.
I mean, like, I think even as far as like looking at the current Avengers roster, whatever that may be, Spidey's one of the vets.
Yeah.
I think it's enough that you don't need all that. You don't need all that to set it up.
Yeah.
To just have one character that has existed and experienced it at its like most like its largest level to exist in this. Like, you need someone
well, quite
who has
frankly,
had
he's
experience.
right. Quite frankly, he's front and center to me.
Right.
It's him, and to me, it's him. They're gonna make Captain America a big part of it.
Yeah.
And they're probably, I'm assuming, gonna make Captain Marvel a big part of it too. But I would say those three and Thor and Hulk, maybe.
Sure.
Like, those are the people that you will be looking at as kind of like your mains.
And whether you like it or not, because of the RDJ of it all back into it, he still is the Iron Man heir apparent. Like, he's still the person that doesn't have access to the technology, but has used it, has known it, has understood the whole side of it. Like, I'm sure people wouldn't be thrilled about that because they would love, again, for like our Spidey to be grounded.
Right.
But there are some obvious connections back.
That's the emotional fulcrum of this. Honestly, the Peter Parker seeing his dead mentor alive again as a evil person is the emotional fulcrum.
I mean,
of the
honestly,
like
all of them seeing him. All of them.
Yeah, for sure.
Like, every fucking scene that's just gonna be a new person finally seeing his face or whatever, finally being introduced as concept is gonna be fucking amazing. Like, that moment is how you make a movie. And I think the other thing about Spider-Man is, even if they couldn't manufacture any other stars completely out of the MCU, Tom Holland is the one. So I think at this point you can treat him like a star and be like, we don't need to set up everything. You're gonna see his face, you're gonna think Spider-Man, you're gonna think Peter Parker, and then the audience can just use that shortcut to get right into whatever we want to tell them.
Yeah. And then I'm guessing whatever the events from that movie have to be so consequential that it adds a little extra to what Spider-Man, his own movie, is.
And it's supposed to be a trilogy, at least as far as we know right now. Like, it's a new trilogy.
It's supposed to be a new trilogy.
Okay.
If I had to guess, I would say, and especially more based on Tom Holland's comments as of late, because he goes, "Hey man, if I have these kids, I'm out of this." So I'm guessing he's thinking, let me do one more trilogy, and then I'm out.
Yeah.
I think that's his.
I'm
that's his
really-
plan. That's his thinking, and then we're gonna get Miles at some point.
Yeah,
Right,
I'm really
exactly,
hoping
yeah.
we get Miles out of this. I feel like Tom Holland. I like Tom Holland as a person, and I like the way he talks about his career and he talks about this character. And I feel like he might be that guy that can be a fullback and be like, we need to get Miles in this
Yeah,
universe.
Yeah,
he
oh,
said
he
it.
wants
He
it.
has said it. He
Yeah.
wants
He even
to
allude
pass
to
the-
it
he wants
in
to
No
pass
Way
the
Home,
torch.
right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Can I be honest with you? He's got a lot of washed agenda. Like, I need to
Yeah.
retire with my
yeah.
kids. Like, he's
Yeah.
really, he's got a lot of washed
Salute to him.
agenda to him.
Yeah.
Totally,
The
totally.
The fact
totally.
that he's definitely changing his name to Zendaya is like
well, he's just gonna be
amazing work.
Tom, right? Because
He's
you
just
don't
gonna be
you're
Tom.
taking the last name
I
means you
think
take
he's
no name at
gonna
all.
no. I think he's going to extra and going Tom Zendaya. I think he's gonna go the
Tom's
full,
there. Okay.
like
I can
above
see
and
it.
beyond extra credit, and I wouldn't blame him. I would
No.
change my name as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, salute to him. Like salute to him for sure. Yeah, that I think.
Can we
I-
talk about that briefly, the Zendaya character and how things left off? Because we talked about,
Yeah.
you
Sure.
know,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of people, who, incorrectly, in my opinion, took them all forgetting him as like and those characters are gone forever. And I think
No.
even if, but I know I'm talking dumb.
No.
But I saw a lot.
I'm laughing at
But
those people.
and I think that like even if Tom and Zendaya weren't together, that'd be dumb. But like
Right.
I'm really excited to see how they do that because like I think the reason you wipe a character's memory like that is just the tension of when is it gonna get undone. Like that's
Yes.
Sure.
That's
I mean,
what
like the other thing too about this, like in context, like we want Miles Morales to be here eventually. We know Zendaya doesn't know that Peter Parker exists. This really opens things up for Shamik Moore.
Damn, I wrote his name down too. I wrote him down.
To
I was
me,
gonna get one in.
Spider-Man, Doomsday is really just Shamik Moore finding out another woman is unavailable to him.
Yeah.
That's a Doomsday for a
He
Spider-Man.
can be the evil.
do
he
I
can
do
wear
I
the
like
black suit.
MJ?
He can wear the black suit like Venom and everything.
yeah, exactly. There you go.
Yeah, and the other thing too I like about it is that we're now at this part of the MCU where it's comic books. Like and
Yes,
for
yes.
everything
Very much
good
so.
about comic books, it is also everything bad about comic books too. And I as the nerd who's I go in there and grab my tablet right now. I'm still reading this shit. This
Yeah.
is my favorite part of comic books is watching them try to bullshit their way through stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Like
the
it's
messiness?
more fun when it's like people I know like for nerds like us anyway. I think it's more fun when we're like, how the fuck they gonna do that? As opposed to
Yeah.
like when we're like, well, of course, guys, you bring in this thing and then you got the end game and they gotta. Now that we're out here in the
Sure.
fucking wilderness, where it's just like I don't know when I click on a MCU property what to expect anymore. I'm kind of digging it, and yeah, they miss, but the thing I like about some of their misses is some of their misses were big fucking swings that I was like, they're not gonna do that shit. You know, there's people that are mad at the last. I haven't checked in with y'all, so I actually don't know if you guys are. But there are people that didn't like the last What If season, and I was
I
like,
didn't even see. Yeah.
but I'm like,
season 3.
yeah,
Season 3?
there's
season
people
3
that really did not like it for some reason. And they're like, it fell off, guys. These used to be big, powerful
It
stories.
fell off?
Yeah,
That's-
dog.
yeah,
and
that's
this
a-
is my
that's a
favorite.
blame.
This is my favorite.
I only ever saw
season.
What If season 1. I don't know
Yeah.
how you can fall off from that.
Yeah, well, I'm saying like,
it ain't have far to fall if it fell. Let me tell
right.
you.
I think
Yeah.
season 3 is more fun. Like, this is
I
my
like
favorite
season 3
shit. It's
better
like,
than the-
what if
Yeah.
Shang-Chi was an old West fucking cowboy? Yes.
Oh,
that's
without
cool.
the accent.
Give me
Outside
the
the
weird
accent.
shit.
Outside the
Oh,
accent.
does Simu Liu come back and do like a Western accent?
Simu
Yeah,
Liu
the cowboy accent,
yes.
yeah.
He does a
Yes.
full cowboy accent?
Yes,
Yeah.
he does. And
Once
ask,
again-
ask
worse
if,
than
ask
once
if
again,
Haley
Jay-
Steinfeld also does one.
But
Oh, there you go.
Also,
That's still worse than Michael B. Jordan saying Wakanda Forever in season
No,
one?
it's not. No, it's
Okay,
not.
got
It's
it,
not.
got it.
But
Okay,
Jake,
just
but
checking.
Jake is making
Yeah.
my point for me. That's a
It's a big
wild
swing.
fucking swing.
Yeah.
That's a wild fucking swing. Like, you ain't got to do all that. But he was like, no.
Also, it's
do
a
the accent
series that
in
is
cartoon
based
form.
on wild swings. Like to defend specifically, like what if for like it's probably its best when it's like just bad and completely out of pocket because
What
that's
if?
like
Yeah,
the
I
whole
agree.
nature of what it is. Yeah,
I agree. Yeah, I think that's why I thought the first season wasn't as good. But you know, but I would extend this stuff to the other films too, right? Like, I
Sure.
felt like Multiverse of Madness was a wild fucking swing. Like, you didn't need to make a horror movie. You didn't need to
Yeah.
turn someone
Yeah.
into a villain. Like, you took a chance and People are gonna
Nobody
walk
could
out of that
ever
hating
make me
it. Some
hate
people are
that
gonna walk
movie.
out loving it.
Never.
And that's
Never.
where we are in the MCU, and that's, to me, this is the more fun thing. So yeah,
I would
whatever
love
they
to
do
see
with
that
Tom
movie
Holland, I
without the
can't wait.
success of No Way Home, because I feel like they had to sprinkle in like a lot of the cameoing
Yeah.
of No Way Home
Yeah,
style.
Yeah.
I would love to have seen Raimi just like get his own thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
that would be interesting.
Yeah.
But then
I'd love to be in the, because you know damn well they're like, you need to put these characters in here.
Correct.
And he's like, can I murder them in the most
Right,
violent
that's what I'm saying.
PG-13 way
Thank you.
possible?
Yeah, that was great.
like
Cameron,
a
your
world
thing.
where you get those studio notes and you're like, as long as I can murder them on screen and make it everybody's favorite fan castings, it's like,
Okay.
yes, sure. That's a thing that I believe up until that point people were saying, scuttlebutt, not
Mhm.
anything proven, but it was, they ain't gonna let you do that kind of shit at the MCU. They
Okay,
got a plan.
Rod, AC, I just because like I really love your point about big swings, Rod.
Yeah.
What big swing do you want from our swinging superhero Spider-Man going into Doomsday?
Pro.
Let me think. What would I want to see? Okay, so this is crazy. It's not gonna happen. But Ultimate
Okay.
Spider-Man, the comic series where Miles gets introduced, you kill Peter, and Miles takes his place, essentially coming into the 616 or whatever the MCU number is at this
So
point.
like the entire trilogy afterward is he's just like a blue Jedi spirit.
Yeah, like he just like it ain't he like it's Tom obviously is gonna be strewn throughout, but like this this idea of passing the torch is really what's missing
be
from
incredible.
the MCU. And I don't think anyone has the balls to do what I'm saying, and I don't blame them. If I was in a meeting,
No.
But you asked me what the big swing is.
No, but that's
the
I think,
crazy
like,
type of
what's the
shit
big
I would
swing?
want to see.
Okay.
I mean, I don't even think it's necessarily in terms of a swing, because I would say, all right, so I'll answer this twofold.
Sure.
For his own movie, I think personally, if Zendaya and MJ is off in the wilderness or whatever, I mean, Felicia Hardy got to come around.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
We should have a Black Cat situation, and Peter should be able to strut his stuff. as we say.
Okay.
Yes, but in terms of Doomsday, I'd really like him to. I would love if somehow, some way, because the Fantastic Four are in Doomsday, him and Johnny Storm becoming friends.
Oh, that's
fast
cool.
friends.
Yeah.
And then kind of have something akin to the books where he can have a friendship with somebody like him, or even somebody like Kamala Khan, because I think if you put Tom Holland
Perfect.
and Aman Vellani, I think they can make magic together.
Is there any kind, like, based on what you know, any kind of reference that you can go to that in any way the Tom Holland Spider-Man is actually responsible for the Robert Downey Jr. Doomsday, like Dr. Doom?
Ooh, I don't know.
Is there like a through line there?
I don't know for sure, because the Doctor Doom that we're getting is in the Fantastic Four's universe. The Fantastic Four are not a part of the 616.
Of course. Yeah, and like that would really like upset again like the purist of like keeping a pure Fantastic Four for sure.
Right. So Doctor Doom's a part of their universe.
Of course,
so,
yes. Yeah.
So you could start that there, but I mean, if we go back to No Way Home, the Doctor Strange spell going awry was because Peter's insistence on including every goddamn person.
And thematically, making Peter responsible for anything bad is just good fucking movies.
Yeah,
it is.
Like, like making him feel like this is on me is like 100% what Peter Parker is.
And
about.
the rest of the Avengers looking at him like, "Yo, what's going on?" And him having to
like.
It actually kind of reminds me of the animated series in the Secret Wars in the animated series, where he was forced to team up with all these heroes. He was supposed to lead them. And they were all like, why are we here? And then everybody blaming him for them being here. So
can it be then the events of No Way Home that bring every fucking thing into this universe brings back the Doctor Doom that is Robert Downey Jr.?
I think that's an interesting point that you make. I'd actually love to see that. I feel like you can't. I mean, it's like I said before. Spider-Man has to be front and center of this, and if you find a way to do that, and then kind of have the Avengers mad at him a little bit.
Well, they can't even be mad at him because they don't know
They
that
can
they
be
he
mad at
did
the
it.
character of Spider-Man, but not
That's
Peter
right.
Parker.
But like they
Yeah.
don't even.
Right, the
But like
character
that's also
friend,
a thing where it may not even be a thing, but he knows he's responsible.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Oh,
with
true.
great power comes
Yeah,
great
because he doesn't need to
responsibility.
be.
Da-da.
He doesn't need anyone to make him feel guilty. He has a
Yeah,
really
Yes.
guilty
exactly.
conscience.
Yeah.
And so
If
like I think
anything,
that's
he'll
the thing about
fucking
power
tell
play.
everybody in the third act.
Yeah.
Yeah, he'll try to like no, but if anything, it's like they could be separately facing this threat of Doctor Doom,
Right.
and the one person who probably knows what the fuck happened and how we got here is
Exactly.
Spider-Man.
Exactly. Yeah.
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 I think that I think that's a great point that you bring up. Now, Jerome, do you have any particular questions that, because obviously as somebody who's been on
Sure.
the outside looking in, are there any other things that you want to kind of know about as we move along in this next?
Oh, this
year,
was
Cheng?
actually a thing I wanted to ask Jake specifically because he did the due diligence of watching all these Sinister Six MCU.
I love that you
or
keep
not MCU.
calling them that because like they're not even really.
They're not even that. Like
No.
what do we call them? Okay, just like the Sony
I mean,
Rogues Gallery. The Sony
not that
Spider-Man
I
Rogues
have
Gallery.
not that I have extensive movie spreadsheets, but I refer to them as the Sony Spider-Man universe.
Sony Spider-Man universe. We have more or less established like it's done. We're
Mhm.
not trying to bring
Yeah.
it back or anything. But if you could bring a few things back, let's
Okay.
give you 3 things. What would you bring into
Okay,
the MCU?
great. The best part of Kraven, in my opinion, and I don't know if you agree with this, Rod, is the character of the Foreigner. He dies in it, but he's he's awesome. I'm a huge fan.
He is.
In 1990, they called that Shang-Chi.
He's.
I love it. I
honestly,
don't know. I love his powers.
Okay,
What's the Foreigner?
see,
What does the
see,
Foreigner
I don't
do?
know what his powers were.
That when he looks you in the eyes, time stops, and then he comes up behind you and like stabs you. And
The
it's
problem
What's
cool.
that
with
to do with being
is-
foreign?
The problem with that is there's a scene where he looks one guy in the eyes and kills him, and then just regular kills the other guy.
Yeah.
And that pisses me off because I was like, either you use the cool powers all the time, or you just go ahead and go in the room and shoot people because that's a power everyone has.
Mm.
So anyway, the Foreigner, I did
That's
not find
anyway.
that intriguing.
I
want the
like the
Foreigner to be
character a
back.
lot, so
Yeah.
we agree to disagree here. But
Yes.
so that character, I like the power
Okay,
set.
that's
Also,
one.
Also,
Foreigner's
Christopher
back.
Abbott is an actor who's going to be his stock's coming up, so he's
Mhm.
going to be the Wolfman.
Okay.
Number 2, I would say, honestly, if they could somehow, like I don't need Eddie Brock, but like
Sure.
Tom Hardy as Venom, like the Venom voice is great always.
Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
we agree.
And then
there.
is there anything from Morbius?
That could be like a
No.
symbiote voice in general, right?
Is there
Mhm.
anything?
So nothing from Madam Web. We're just being
No,
clear
I'm
about
thinking I was going to go to Mad Mod next.
that. Okay.
Honestly, you know what would be a good idea is flashbacks of Adam Scott as Ben Parker. That not as Ben Parker,
okay.
as he does. He
Is
play
it-
Uncle Ben.
Yeah,
or is
Ben
he?
Parker.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
Uncle Ben, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Ben.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Him as Uncle Ben. Now, is he good in the movie? Like, that's hard to say. Was anyone good on that Charlotte Bobcats team that won 9 games? Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Fair.
it's bad. Sorry, Rod.
Rod.
It's okay. No, I lived it. It's fine.
And so, but I think that like his energy is really good, and I think that he's like, given that he was that age in 2002, even though it's not the same universe, like if they were to have like flashbacks of him or him as like a ghost or something, that would be cool. And because I think that he is
like if it's revealed in some way that he actually was the husband of Marissa Tomei's like Aunt May, like you would go for that. Okay.
I mean, given that Adam Scott is 50 years old and that movie takes place in 2003, the math actually doesn't not work out. So
Right. Sure. Fair enough.
Yeah.
By the way, shout out to Marissa Tomei, who couldn't be happier about her death in Spider-Man: No Way Home.
Hey man, she doesn't understand it. The thing is, these damn fans keep wanting these actors to understand the shit they're in. Just be happy that they're in it.
Yeah.
I don't need Harrison Ford to know who the Red Hulk is.
Right.
That's like
Right,
Michael.
yeah.
That's like Michael Douglas. He's like, I think they may need to kill me, man.
Right.
Right. Michael Douglas was.
They're saying your dumb lines from comic books. They're trained. Stop it.
Right.
I agree.
Okay,
I agree with the Venom voice.
Yeah.
I think I would throw a bit of an audible because the Foreigner was not that interesting to me. Just as like character or whatever. Although he could be made to be interesting, you know what I mean? But I
That's
think
the xenophobia talking.
Yeah, listen, okay. I think he needs to go back to his own country and do whatever he does over there. All right, we got enough foreigners over here. We also need evil Captain America to be called Captain Make America Great Again.
No.
Sure, of course.
The thing is, it's and like it, they couldn't even make Craven, in a couple months because I heard that the foreigner's on an HB1 visa anyway.
They really want to bring him over because they don't have to pay him as much as the other stars. Oh fuck, we had too much fun. I forgot my point. Jesus.
Wait, sorry. Yeah, you didn't want the foreigner.
You didn't care about the foreigner.
You're doing an audible on the foreigner, but you do have something you want to bring back from the Sony.
Yeah. Yeah. Like, come back to me. I'll remember it.
Okay. You good?
Jesus
you good?
Christ.
Oh man.
Yeah. No. Because like, again, like it's all like I've said it a couple times already. Like it does feel like a clean slate. Like it feels like you can really walk in with whatever you want to walk in.
Yeah.
So, like rather than like some of the things where characters clearly left you with where they are, like you talked about on your previous episode. In this case, you really get to select. Like, do you guys want to see the other Spider-Man involved at some point?
Oh, I mean,
yes and no. Like not immediately, but I would. Sure,
of course, not immediately.
At some point,
yeah. I mean, big time spoiler alert. I would guess that Secret War is gonna have everybody who you could ever think of.
Yeah.
Of course.
And also, can I say this? I was thinking about it earlier, and we'll get to talk about this more. I think the solution to like the multiverse problem is just to go to 100 in Secret Wars, and then no one will ever bring it up again. Like, I think if you put every fucking person who is alive and willing to be in the movie, no one will ever again ask about it, which I think is the right thing to do.
Yeah, it just needs to look like someone's like college dorm poster.
Exactly. No, it needs to look like the Marvel equivalent of when Italian restaurants have like a drawing with the characters from Goodfellas, the characters from Sopranos.
Yes, yeah, all together. Yeah, exactly.
Yes. Oh man, it's so great. So, like, do you have any other questions, Jerome?
I think that kind of covers it. Yeah, the only thing was just like this is again like a high level part, but like we. Between our ages and between like actually being like OG MCU people, I'm very curious for how much time has passed and how much we're like gone to the kind of the other side, because like this phase in between was a bit of a dud. It hasn't like resonated the way it needed to. Like I think Robert Downey Jr. does still hit. I think Tom Holland does still hit. But like, does Spider-Man need to be Peter Parker? And for how long? Like it's stuff like that where I know I'm growing up with it. Like that's such a lock for me.
Do
like,
you
how
guys
could you possibly change it up? But like, yeah.
Do you guys play video games?
Which ones? Like I remember a long time ago playing Marvel Ultimate Alliance, but that's
okay. So like Sony has these Spider-Man video games.
Oh yes, of course.
The Activision ones, right?
Yeah. And so I envision a Spider-Man / Miles Morales type trilogy could actually be really dope on screen, and it makes Peter a whole person because he becomes like the father figure / mentor as a superhero and a human being to Miles. And that is something that I think is under talked about in this MCU thing. What actually kept the MCU going is not just, oh, we're gonna bring in Thanos. To me, what actually brought it in was the torch passing between RDJ to Tom Holland. Like
1,000%.
Yeah, it just invests you in those characters, and anything they're in from that point in, you're like watching their relationship and watching them grow as characters. And I think that's what is missing from that. When you say there's this lull, there's very little torch passing. There's some like introductions, and there's definitely some homages. Like Miss Marvel loves Captain Marvel. But the Marvels comes too late when it comes to like.
But Miss Marvel barely even got a chance to pick up a torch, let alone pass it along.
It's almost like if the Marvels comes out before the Miss Marvel series, almost not exactly, but like you get more of a like, hey, I'm telling you, she's one of them ones, and then we're like, okay, we better watch her. And they've kind of tried to do it backwards, as Jake alluded to earlier, where they're like manufacturing stars instead of bringing in stars. But I think having a star handed off to the next star is just a big thing. And so that they have a chance in the Spider-Man franchise to, if they can find whoever the kid is to play Miles Morales or whatever, they have a chance to where they can manufacture another star of we didn't have to bring in a big name. We
Mhm.
are watching Tom Holland help this guy become a big name.
Mhm.
And that
Mhm.
should be appealing to every single party involved. Sony, Marvel, Tom Holland who wants to
Sure.
go raise babies. Like everyone should be on board with this.
I think
I agree.
the two to think about is like if the next Spider-Man movie is coming out in 2026, right?
Yes, July 20.
July 2026. So that means if someone is 18 years old when that movie comes out, they were 10 when Into the Spider-Verse came out. Miles Morales has been around for half their life. So I think that
Yeah,
younger people's
exactly.
relationship to that character is like
Mhm.
is just like, can Peter
It's
Parker
like
not be
saying which
Spider-Man?
one is your SNL cast, which one is your Batman, which one is your Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Like, that is the thing.
Exactly.
Now.
And so I think that like the idea of Spider-Man not being Peter Parker is going to be, as the years go on, is going to be more and more like, yeah, why not? Yeah, Miles Morales is Spider-Man.
Exactly.
And so
I think we're getting there already.
yeah, I agree. I
Yeah.
agree because
Yeah.
Miles Morales is just like because I remember when I was in college, one of my best friends who's been on the pod, he does table reads, Mosiah, the guy who reads does
Yes,
the
yes, of course.
Yes.
He's a
Cool.
huge Miles Morales fan, and he was back in like 2014. I remember he was doing like a short film where he did his Miles Morales thing, and I remember he wanted me to help write or something, so I got. The only time I ever actually bought comics in a store, I got like a whole volume of Miles Morales comics, and I'm like, oh, this is really, really cool. And the amount that exploded from like I had to ask about like where to get that Spider-Man volume to now Miles Morales is like if Miles Morales was in the MCU, he would be in the top half of most famous characters in the MCU.
Yep.
So like, I really think that Miles Morales should be introduced, maybe not in the first one, but in movie 2 in this series.
Yeah, exactly.
And then oh, what is that? You already have an actor who's famous and well liked, cast as the Prowler, just sitting there. Bing bang boom.
Yes.
I mean, the thing about the MCU is when the people talk about like how much they plan or don't plan, and I know, Jerome, we've talked about this at length. The great thing what they do is that they throws a lot of stuff at the wall, not like in like a bad way. They put a lot of stuff in their movies. And so when they're like, when we get to Miles Morales, guess what? We already established that Aaron Davis is a character.
1,000%.
And that doesn't mean that from 2017 they knew exactly what they're going to do with
Nope.
it. But no, they have him on the board, and so they can be like, hey, we already have this guy, and let's put him right here. And Donald, thank you very much.
Well, here's the other thing that it feels like where we're headed is we're finally seeing an MCU where they actually had the rights to the characters that they would have wanted to start this thing with.
Yep.
And so you have Fantastic Four, you have Spider-Man, you have X-Men. You're telling me Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man is going to shake anything if you started with those like 3 properties? And so the thing that's like really interesting, and I think what they seem like they're trying to do is how to start with probably the way you wanted to start in the first place, while also being almost burdened by like the entire universe that was built before. Like, to quote The Rock, like the power levels or whatever need to be like changed. Like the hierarchy of power needs to be changed, because realistically, like this is probably how you actually wanted the MCU to be in the first place.
And that's
so that's like what's interesting
that none of us have talked about, but is obviously looming over everything is, well, now you have X-Men, now like there's a bunch of shit that we're not even contemplating right now that could throw this entire, like everything we've said for a loop is just, oh man, Wolverine just shows up in Doomsday or something. And we're like, okay, well that changes the calculus on everything we were thinking. And who we want to see team up with who and do what kind of thing. Even
Rod,
Rod, you were joking about Anthony Mackie. Imagine telling someone who had access to all these characters, we're going to give you a second Captain America.
Right, exactly. Even like Deadpool as this wild card meta character breaking, like, because in the comics that's what they use Deadpool as. I just finished reading. Ironically, I just finished reading the Black Panther versus like the Doom Wars, where they fight Doom.
Oh, I love that book.
And like at the end, fucking they bring in Deadpool to kill Doom. I was like, of course, yes, the motherfucker that knows he's in a comic book. Of course, Doom's not planning for that. That motherfucker's crazy. So like they now have toys they didn't have before. That you're right. I didn't even think about this when we were talking, but all this shit we're saying could come to pass or not pass, because they could be like, Rod, we got new toys.
And Rod, Channing Tatum Gambit.
I'm about to make a name for myself.
Yeah.
The thing is,
No, but,
Rod,
like-
Rod, you're talking as if we've ever made a prediction that didn't age well on this podcast, and that's preposterous. It's not like I don't know. It's not like someone once tweeted at me, "Hey, I'm listening to old pods," and you said if Natalie Portman comes back to the Thor universe, it's more likely I'll sprout wings. You know, no one ever says things like that on the show.
And I thought of my two things that go along for the.
Oh yeah,
the
hit
take.
us up.
Woody Harrelson is Carnage. I
Oh,
take
yep.
the MCU.
Oh yeah, very
Yeah,
good.
yeah, yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
Wasn't
yes,
his
yes.
fault. And then the
No.
third one is kind of a funny one, but Russell Crowe as Craven's dad eating up that scenery.
Yo, the man.
Russell Crowe coming back as Craven's dad to the MCU would be so much funnier, considering he did not in any way exist in Gladiator 2. Like, I understand his character's dead,
Right.
but like,
The
yeah.
Russell Crowe crazy European accent trilogy. Because someone asked me, because I asked for a question, someone asked me, and I'm not going to spoil my answer on this, to rank Russell Crowe's crazy European accent for Pope's Exorcist, Thor Love and Thunder, and Craven the Hunter. The man is just like, hey, I did a bunch of movies where I'm a hunk. I have an Oscar. I'm just going to eat as much as I want.
Yep.
And I'm just going to do the dumbest accents I could think of. Salute.
He's
Salute.
living life. That man is living life.
But yeah, no, I think that's kind of the interesting part about where we're headed, and like you're talking about all these things, is the MCU has been so much about growing the universe and growing all these things out. But I think some of what they had to do was necessity because they had no superstars.
Yes.
They do now. So like it is very interesting to see what comes ahead, that like, yes, we were really clamoring for a Blade, but if you're telling me I can get like an X-Men, a Fantastic Four, and a Spider-Man trilogy, I don't need to know anything about what Agatha has been up to all along.
Well, according to Wesley, we got a Blade already, so
We
you
do
know.
have a Blader. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
But just to that end, I think like it is, and you guys obviously have been following it at length, but like outside looking in, more casually being a fan, it does feel like the model doesn't work and it doesn't need to work anymore.
Yeah.
I do really feel, I've said this before. I do feel like they're going to use Secret Wars to soft reboot the thing.
Yep.
Sure.
And then make the X-Men and the Fantastic Four kind of like the headliners of it, and usher in, assuming the newer, younger heroes of the next phase, the Kate Bishops, the now Wiccans, that like them folks. I could see that Miss Marvel, obviously, Riri Williams. Like I feel like those.
It just
people,
makes Disney Plus series actually make sense.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So I think there'll be a use for that, and you know, with that being said, Spider-Man will be a face. Spider-Man will be a face.
Not
of
a
that
heel?
Not Spider. Oh no, he go like with the black suit. There might be a little bit of a heelish Peter
Could
Parker
be heel.
at some point for like a little while at least until he comes to his senses. But it'll be fascinating to see what happens with Peter Parker as he not only goes into Doomsday but his own trilogy, as we discussed. This has been. I love that this is a Spider-Man episode and we went in like 45 different directions, but I think that's kind of like what we do. So we're used to that at this point. This has been a lot of fun. Happy to have our wonderful guests as always. Jerome, it's such a pleasure. Every time you come back, it's like you never left.
No. I really do miss it, and it's so fun to like chat it up with you guys, and it's like so cool to see, like as much as I tend to complain about how poorly the MCU seems to expand, like MCU University does such a great job of adding to their universe and adding all the people. You got people like Rod, you got the now defunct Craven the Hunter Radesi, who tried to get into this episode.
Shout out to Hunter.
Shout out to Hunter. Sorry for the technical issues.
He'll be back for another
He'll
one.
be back for another one. But no, just to see, where everything like has gone and like where you guys are, it's like it's such a cool thing. Like I'm such a fan.
Oh, that's too kind. But that's too kind. We love you. We appreciate you. And as always, where can we find you, sir?
You can find me at Black Dragon Roll. These days I work on a Raptors/NBA podcast called Hello and Welcome Podcast with my friends William Liu and Alex Swong. You can find that at Hello Welcome Pod on all socials, YouTube, and definitely find us on Apple Podcasts, everywhere you can listen to podcasts. But yeah, that's what we're up to these days.
Wonderful. And of course, our pal Rod. Where can we find you, sir?
Just the Black Guy Who Tips podcast. You can find us everywhere you get podcasts. Check us out. If you like my nerdy opinions, make sure you check out the latest episode of For All Nerds podcast, where we talked about Star Wars, Skeleton Crew, which was a very fun conversation.
I hear that's really good. I actually want to get
I
into
Yeah,
love
it.
it.
Yeah.
we
I
might
love
be
it.
covering it on this pod at some point. I still
Very
haven't
cool.
watched any of it, but I
Oh,
think I
really?
booked a
Okay.
guest, so I'm gonna watch all of it.
I know
Star
yo
Wars,
I know
pretty good
Jake's ass
model.
gonna like it because Jake has a reverence for a certain type of kid film and a certain era of Hollywood that I think this thing is really going back to. So I would
I
be
hear it has like a
surprised if you didn't
Goonies
like it.
vibe, right?
Very
A bit.
very Goonies, Spielberg, or
Nice.
that vibe. But with Star Wars, so very fun. But yeah, make sure you check me out on Twitter as well because we're never calling it X. At Rodimus
That's right.
Prime.
Yes, sir. Wonderful. And Jake.
You can follow me on Twitter at the J Christie. I'm on Blue Sky at J Christie, and still doing a TikTok a day at the J Christie. Still having a lot of fun with that. Just did the Elon Musk Masterful Gambit Sir tweet today. Classic. Tomorrow is going to be. There's a spoiler because it's going to go up before it goes out. So tomorrow's is going to be. Today's is going to be the That's Chappy tweet. So yeah, there you go. Little inside info. Don't tell anyone. I watched Chappie last night in order to prepare for it.
Wow.
Oh man.
Wow.
Goddamn. Mm-hmm. And of course, you can follow me on Twitter at @AnthonyCanton_3, Anthony Canton 3 on Blue Sky. Follow the show on all platforms at MC University Pod. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. As I mentioned on the top, the Patreon, patreon.com/MC University Pod. All comment, like, all of these things all over the place. And if you like this mini series, let us know. Let us know your opinion. What do you think about what's going on with Spider-Man and what's going on? We will continue this mini series next month, so that should be a lot of fun as we dive into every corner and crevice of the MCU as we get on the road to Avengers Doomsday. So for Rod Morrow, Jerome Cheng, and Jake Christie, I'm Anthony Canton III. This has been Marvel Cinematic University, and we will talk to you next time on the road to Doomsday.